Hello fellow orchid lovers, it's Danielle here. We are going to take a look at my Miltoniopsis today. So someone recently left a comment on my videos and it reminded me that I haven't updated you guys on this particular part of my collection in a while, and I have made some changes and they're doing extremely well. I don't have them here in the grow room. They're actually growing on a windowsill in my bathroom, so I kind of forget about them. So I just wanted to bring them on into the grow room and give you a little update. And I also wanted to just give you a few pointers if you decide you'd like to cross a Miltoniopsis over to waterculture. They are a little more difficult to grow in waterculture than your typical Oncidium type. They are a lot more prone to pseudobulb rot, the brown rot, and very sensitive to a lot of different things. Pretty much if you do anything, they're sensitive to it. So just, I wanted to point out a few things for you to keep in mind, so maybe you'll have better success with your first foray into waterculture with these plants. Mine was not very successful, and it actually took me a couple of years to figure out how to grow them successfully. But most of the plants that you see here, only 2 of them are recent purchases. The rest are plants that I've had for a couple of years now, and most of them I almost completely lost. I did lose a few. I'm not, saying that I didn't lose any. I did lose a few because I was under the impression that these orchids needed a lot of moisture. I was under the impression that they need cooler temperatures, no direct sunlight, and a lot of moisture. And certain facets of that information is true, but not all of it. So unfortunately, I overwatered or gave too much water to my first couple of these plants, and I killed them pretty quickly. And then after that, I kind of started learning my lesson, but it did take me quite a while to figure out what I was doing wrong. So basically, one of the reasons why I think they're so prone to rot is they do have a very extensive bract system. So typically they have 3 on each side. A mature pseudobulb will have 3 on each side. And other Oncidiums have a tendency to shed these bracts pretty quickly. Miltoniopsis don't seem to do that as quickly, for me at least. They seem to hang on to them much longer. So this is a perfect place for moisture to set up camp and rot your pseudobulb without you even knowing it. So my tip number 1 is, if you're going to grow a Miltoniopsis in waterculture, keep an eye on these bracts. If they look like there's moisture in between them, there's too much moisture for the orchid. She's going to start to rot. So you want to make sure that this is kind of the general look of the base of your pseudobulbs. Very dry. You see how that's not wet? What you don't want is something along these lines. Now, I just rinsed this orchid, so that's the reason why she's so damp. But if this is typically how your Miltoniopsis looks, it's too much moisture, especially if she has bracts. Like this pseudobulb doesn't have bracts, so there's nothing to trap the moisture there. But if she had bracts, oh my goodness, she would rot very quickly. So, that's the number 1 thing that you're going to want to be cautious about. Also, although they do enjoy being on the more damp side, that doesn't mean wringing wet. So really, with mine, I have found that just dipping their toes in the water is enough. Their root system is extremely absorbent, and if you have the water level too high for them, even a plant that you've acclimated to waterculture, if you'll remember, when I cross an orchid over to waterculture, I start with very low levels, but then as it gets acclimated, I will raise those levels. I do not raise the levels for my Miltoniopsis. Their root system is extremely absorbent. So just their toes dipped into the water is enough to hydrate the entire root system. If you do more than that, again, you're running the risk that the base of the orchid is going to get too damp. Now, I recently crossed them over from just plain single cups to my double cup setup that I do with my Cattleyas, which basically is the inside cup is what holds the orchid and the pebbles, and then there's 2 holes on the bottom so that I can remove the outer cup and completely drain the plant without disturbing the root system. And that's because I want to flush these cups very regularly. They are also extremely sensitive to high levels of fertilizer. I don't fertilize these along with the rest of my plants. I basically just give them, you know, my well water, which is tap water, and every once in a while, if there's a little bit of fertilized water left in the bottom of my container, I'll dump a whole bunch of well water in and dilute it even further, and then I'll give them a little drink. So as you can see, they're all doing really well in this method. These I've had for a couple years now, and they are rebounding, and I'll share that with you. These two I purchased this spring, so these are relatively new to my collection. This one, I kind of dropped the ball on this one, so I don't think she's gonna make it. But this one bloomed for me this summer. This is an Andrea West. And this bloom has been around since the beginning of August, I believe. I didn't take a picture, so I don't have like a timestamp. But I did look back on some of my videos, and she was developing her bud in July. So I'm pretty sure she opened this at the beginning of August, and now it is the last day of September. So this has stuck around for a while, and it smells heavenly. Just one tiny bloom, but it smells so good. So anyways, this particular one, the reason why I dropped the ball is I did pot it up like these were, but because it doesn't have a very extensive root system, I couldn't really tell if I was hydrating it or not. Well, it turns out I wasn't. So yeah, her pseudobulb desiccated. The new growth is struggling. I don't think it's going to make it, but I just wanted to share this with you too, because there are, you know, those extremes: too much water, too little water. This one got too little water. But what are you going to do, right? That's how it goes. This particular one's doing really good. I don't have tags for them because, like I said, I've had them for a couple of years, and I got so frustrated at one point, I just kind of threw them all in their individual glasses and kind of just forgot about their existence and threw water their way every once in a while, and somehow they pulled through that. So, but I lost the tags in the meanwhile. So this one, actually, I had her in a cup, and I had a piece of succulent that fell off of a plant I had, and I just threw it in the cup with her, and their root system has completely melded together. So they are now, they're buddies. So there's no separating them without ruining, hurting the root system on this. So I'm just leaving them alone. But as you can see, this was a new growth that was on a plant that I got. The plant was dying. I saved the new growth. It pushed out another pseudobulb, which was, you know, a little pitiful. And now it's pushing out another new growth. Now, in between, there was a new growth that failed. But it is trying to push out another one. And this one actually looks pretty healthy. It already looks to be around the same size as the last bulb that matured. And, you know, there's no crinkling of leaves, so the root system is doing its job. So this one's doing okay. This one I do have a tag for. This one has bloomed for me in the past. This is Hajime Ono, and she has really beautiful, like, burgundy blooms with a little bit of a white splash on the lip. Really, really pretty, very fragrant. She was going to bloom for me this year, but my bathroom window was open and we got a really bad rainstorm, and all the water went into the bract and it killed the spike. So I lost the blooms on her this year, but she did bloom for me 2 years ago. So, and then she started developing this new growth. So hopefully she'll bloom on that one. But as you can see, again, the progression of the bulbs, she is getting better. She is improving. Now this one was just a seedling when I got her. She wasn't a very big plant, so it's not like I had a big pseudobulb that died and then I had to grow on from there. They were pretty small pseudobulbs that she came with, but I have had her for a couple of years. This one, again, I don't have a tag for. She's not doing swimmingly, but she is trying, and so I'm trying to be there for her and help her out and cheer her on. She doesn't have a very good root system. She has a couple of really old, crappy roots that I just dip the toes in. I don't fill it up, you know, to just blow the pseudobulbs or anything like that, because that is more than enough to hydrate her and hopefully not overhydrate her. But she has a new growth, as you can see. It's tiny. It's not doing that great, but It does have some roots developing, so we'll see how it does. This plant is going to go backwards before it goes forward, so this new growth is definitely not going to be anywhere near the level of the last mature pseudobulb. It's probably going to be somewhere along the lines of this size, and then she'll grow on from there. So we have a couple of years before she's back doing well. Now this one is doing really, really good. Not only is she blooming, she also has a small little new growth there. She has another larger growth here, and her root system is quite extensive. New roots down in the water. This actually is a little high for me. I don't like how high this is. I'm gonna drain some of this off. It's hard to see sometimes when you're pouring the water in with these darker glass beads. So I'm gonna take some of that off. I'm gonna ideally have it like right here where the tips of her roots are and not so high up in the cup. But she's doing really well. So that's great. And this is my favorite Miltoniopsis of all times, is the Andrea West. So I'm really happy one of them is surviving. Now this is the one that I got recently because on the website, its name was Rogue, and that's my Doberman that passed away a couple years ago. So I had to buy this because I loved that dog and I missed that dog. So anyways, this is in honor of that dog. And she is growing a new growth. It's not really, it's got some crinkled leaves, which means that there's a little trouble with the hydration. Her root system was pretty terrible, I have to say, when I pulled her out of her pot. But she has maintained, you know, a healthy pseudobulb. It's not desiccating. She's not losing bracts left and right. She is getting a bunch of new roots. So that's really good. So hopefully, you know, that new growth will mature those roots pretty quickly, and then we won't have to worry about the crinkling of the leaves. But she's doing really good. And again, I just get her feet wet. I don't, like, that's the water level. That's all she needs. That will wick into the rest of her root system. And then finally, we have my second Andrea West. This was actually a freebie that I got from Calipana Tropicals, and I was like freaking out because it is my favorite Miltoniopsis. So she actually objected a little bit to how much light I was giving her. I'm giving her the same light as all of these, but I think that maybe where she was growing at the nursery was a little more shady. So some of her bracts yellowed and fell off, and then she has like a slightly purplish tinge where the light has gotten she's gotten a little too much light. So I moved her back on the windowsill a little bit, but she's getting a new growth here, which is really good. Again, terrible root system, really, really bad. And again, just her feet are wet. Just the tips of her roots are wet, and then all of this to the base of her is out of the water. And again, that's plenty of water. She doesn't need more than that. And she's getting a few new roots, as you can see right there. So I also do try, you know, I like the pebbles because it creates a humid environment. It gives them something to grab onto, but also I don't put it too close to the base because I do like to keep an eye on how wet this area gets. If this looks too damp, then I can drain the water off. But if it was covered with pebbles, then I wouldn't know. And it might get too wet. And also it would make it much more humid around the base than I would prefer. So that's how my Miltoniopsis are doing. They're doing really, really good. I'm actually very encouraged. Like I said, I grow them in my bathroom, which is on the opposite side of my house. So they get northwest facing light. So at the end of the day, they do get about 2 to 3 hours of direct light from the sun. And the only one that's object to it so far is this one. The other ones seem to not mind that so much because it is, you know, towards the end of the day. And for the last like half an hour, that light is filtered through some trees. But they're in my bathroom, like I said, so they do get humidity from the shower, stuff like that. And it is much cooler in that room than it is in here. So if you have any questions, certainly let me know. I'm really excited about how this particular plant is doing in my care now. So there is a definite possibility that I will be getting more if I can find some that I would like. So I hope you guys are all having a really great day, and I will talk to you all next time.